Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. Got something new and special here with us today that we were going to do an unboxing of. Columbia Games was kind enough to send me a copy of their new edition of Rommel in the Desert. This is a classic block war game by designer Craig Besink. Craig, I apologize if I have mispronounced that, so please correct me should that be the case. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, there was a Kickstarter in 2021. I don't know exactly when this thing was actually started shipping. I just got it, like literally today. But this may be, the Kickstarter version. I believe it to be at this point. And this is a quote unquote enhanced edition. I don't know that it says that on the box. But it definitely feels enhanced. And one of the things I instantly noticed is because I've had let's say I've had a fair amount of Columbia Games product pass through my hands over the years. This is in a standard, what I would call accordion style box. It is not in that plain cardboard box with Columbia Games logos on the end and a sleeve that whole thing fits into, which they've been using for many years. This is in a pretty standard box, and it feels real nice. It feels real thick. So without further ado, let's get her open and see what we get in here. Now, this is not one of the Columbia games that I have played or owned in the past. So I'm very curious to take a look and see what we get here. The box itself has kind of a nice satin finish going on. I rather like that. Okay, and it is very thick. All right, so first of all, we have the Rommel in the Desert Rulebook. This is the layout here is 36-page rulebook. It just howls Columbia Games, right? Designed by Craig Besink, co-developed by Rod Howitz, assistance by a bunch of people: Gary Chappell, Dave Blizzard, Grant Dalglish, Tom Dalglish, Brian Emda, Mike Hoyt, and Dieter Schleipfer. Graphics by Grant and Tom Dalglish and Chris Moeller. So Chris Moeller is actually the fellow who's been doing the boxes lately from Operational Studies Group. And he also has a couple of games of his own published through Compass Games, not Columbia. So very interesting to see him working with Compass Games as well. I'm very happy to see that. He's also got some really good graphic novels and is the guy behind the Thursday Night Gamers, who haven't been super active lately, but he seems real busy, so that might be why. So, those familiar with anything for the last 20 years will recognize this layout. It is a very clear layout. It is full color. It is it's a heavy-ish matte finish. Feels pretty nice. Got an interesting little texture on the top of this particular page here. So, if I didn't know better, I'd say this game was printed in China, but I actually am not convinced that this rulebook was. That's for sure. For one thing, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but the trim on the edge is not quite even. It actually is kind of like the kind of thing I would do if I was printed out myself, on 11 by 17 paper. And but I mean, it looks fine, looks good. The game has a very strong reputation, let me put it that way. As do a lot of these Columbia block games. I feel at this point like this is a bit of a piece of wargaming hobby that doesn't really get enough attention. Not that there's a shortage really of block games coming out. We have about 27 pages of rules here. That's actually not true. So this is going to be Western Desert Campaign, right? So we've got 21 pages of rules here. And then it gets into scenarios. We've got a 1940 scenario, a 41, a 41-2 campaign, Operation Crusader. Then we've got Operation Battle Axe, 1942 scenario, a Gazala scenario. Now, if you don't know, if you've never played one of these games, I'll show you in a minute that there are wooden blocks and there are stickers that go on one side only of the wooden blocks, and then you stand them up thereby hiding what the unit is and its strength and all that from the opponent, okay? And then you rotate the blocks to reflect step losses or replacements. So the numbers that are facing up are the current strength of these blocks. So this guy right here, for example, could go up to 4 steps, but he is currently only at 3 steps. So that's pretty interesting. Here is Demo 1940. This is an example of play. There are some strategy notes in the back. There are design notes. We've got some game record sheets and an index. Not vouching for the index because these things tend to be real shaky, but Columbia, and when I say this, I'm going mostly with their RPG products. Their indexes have tended to be pretty good. Here's your fire table. This is basically going to be what the game runs off of right here. So let's see what else we get in here. As you'd expect, we get a big sheet of stickers. I don't know if you can tell that these are stickers, but they are in fact stickers. So we get one sheet of those, and these will be applied to one side of the blocks. We get a rather nice new Deluxe Edition Rommel in the Desert catalog. Doesn't say new Deluxe Edition on the box, though. But this is pretty deluxe. This is definitely not this is to a higher standard of production. I don't want to say higher, but more modern standard of production. And really, I'm only talking about the box than a lot of the other Columbia Games stuff that I've had. But anyway, they've got a whole bunch of these block games. That's kind of been their forte. They, as Gamma 2 Games, did originate the whole block games genre or subgenre. They've got a Civil War / Napoleonics card game called Dixie. And apparently there's a reprint coming soon. That's pretty interesting. So we've got, and as this thing points out, some of these block games are area maps. Some of them are point-to-point maps, and some of them are hex maps. Here's Victory, World War II sandbox game. So this is a game I've played, actually. I played it a long time ago at Origins, and I rather liked the way the mechanics work. But I wasn't crazy about the fact that it's played on like a geomorphic made-up map. But later on, they did, and it's not on this page, there's a bunch of expansions for Victory 2, by the way. Here's Wizard Kings, which I think uses a very similar system, except it's fantasy. And in this case, I have absolutely no problems with a made-up fantasy map. And here's Ardwulf. So if I don't get to it, and it's not in the catalog or I missed it, there's a game called Pacific Victory, which applies this system to an actual historical map in the Pacific, and it looks pretty neat and is pretty well regarded. Here's Harnworld. So I've been doing videos about Harnworld, the fantasy setting that can be used with any RPG for many years. Go check those videos out. I'm not going to talk too much about it from a wargaming video. Here's High Colonies, which is kind of a sci-fi cousin of Harn Master, the role-playing system. And they now have some computer games, which you can get these on Steam, by the way. One for Julius Caesar. These are translations of their existing block games, Julius Caesar, Richard III. Upcoming on Kickstarter, Alliance. This is their Napoleonic game. I'm pretty sure that Kickstarter is actually over already. Quebec 1759, 50th Anniversary Edition. This is the game that began the block game subgenre. And then they've got this game called Mountain Men, which kind of looks like a wilderness survival type of thing. Actually sounds pretty cool. I could swear that it may be that game, in fact, that I had heard of. And Last Spike, which is kind of a general board game about rail building, but it doesn't seem to play much like existing rail games that I'm familiar with anyway. And here's, of course, Slapshot, the legendary card game of ice hockey lunary. If you have seen the movie Slapshot, you will have a good sense of what this thing is all about. In other words, it's a total hoot. All right, so stickers, Columbia Games catalog, extremely nice feeling mounted map. Let's take a closer look at Mr. Mounted Map. So this is a bit of an interesting layout. Let me see if I can scooch this over a little bit, because this is a thing that I often complain about with mounted maps, is like, hey, I pull this thing out of the box and it hugely pooches and I end up having to put plexi over it anyway. This thing is probably 99% dead flat on the table, even though my table is not completely flat because it's on this mat. So this is where a typical wargame map will be more or less, will be 4 8.5 by 11 panels. I'm sorry, 8 8.5 by 11 panels. This is 6 8.5 by 11 panels. You can see that the layout's a bit unconventional, but you know that reflects the terrain over which this campaign was actually fought. Of course, we've got Tobruk and Bardia. Alexandria's over here on the corner. I'm not sure if you can see that. And over to the west, we have Benghazi and El Agila too. So a lot of the classic Rommel in the desert, stuff can be played out in this game, including a bunch of stuff before Rommel gets there, like Operation, actually I'm not sure what the timetable is exactly, but you can also do Crusader and Battle Axe and some other stuff. So this looks really rather nice, I have to say. Now the other thing that comes in the game, other things I should say, are a deck of cards, 4 6-sided dice, and several bags of blocks. Now, this is probably one of, and I'll show you, this has got a box insert. Because this is a block game, truthfully, almost always these box inserts go into garbage, or the recycling, I should say. That's probably not going to be the case here. And these blocks are very nice blocks, too. I mean, they're blocks. They're blocks. And you've got gray blocks for the Germans, and you've got tan blocks for everybody else, and you've got white blocks, which I believe are going to be for markers. So some folks will complain, and I've done this too, complain about, oh, I got to sticker all the blocks, but then, you know, as was pointed out to me, hey, you could be painting miniatures instead. Not that this is a game that's going to feel much like a miniatures game. This is a board war game. But like Commands and Colors, to me, feels like a miniatures game. All right, so what we have here are a whole deck of cards, all of which are, these seem like supply. I believe these are going to represent supply, because this is the supply, the typical supply symbol. So we've got a whole deck of these. I am not sure what these do. However, the cards themselves have a nice linen finish to them. They slide over each other fairly nicely. Sleeve them if you want. They feel like pretty much the standard game-sized cards that we see in a lot of war games, except those from Decision. Decision actually uses a different sized cards than everybody else. And I think, and again, feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm full of it here, that most companies following Magic the Gathering's lead are using European-sized poker cards, where Decision uses US-sized poker cards. They're a little narrower in terms of aspect ratio. So I have no idea how these cards work, to be completely honest. That's the one thing in this whole box that has me just a wee bit baffled. So this has been a look at a very nice new edition of Rommel in the Desert. Again, game designed by Craig Basink from Columbia Games. Thank you, Columbia Games, for sending this to me. Thank patrons of Ardwulf's Lair for helping all of the content that we do here to actually be executed. It would not be possible without you, so thank you, patrons. And thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it or found it valuable, please do give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more wargame content. And until next time, happy wargaming.